Good afternoon. Before I start my talk today, I'd like to really thank the Just Seminar organizers and Sujit especially for inviting me and giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my views as a practitioner of performing arts in front of you. And also, I'm truly honored to share this platform with such esteemed and honorable speakers that we had this morning, and we're going to have the rest of the afternoon. Thank you so much. Well, when the Just Talk Collective, the organizers of the seminar, asked me to talk on the subject on social justice, in the first instance, I thought to myself, I might not be the right person to talk about this subject. I was then reminded of the words of Dr. Daisaku Ikeda, the Japanese philosopher and votary of peace, human rights, and the environment. Dr. Ikeda once remarked, one artist is equivalent to 100 people. In the context of how artists can apply their art form to impactfully influence society on matters of social change. Those words prompted me to think that as an artist, I should take this opportunity to share my views and experiences on how the power of performing arts and the artists themselves could impactfully highlight social issues. My name is Enakshi Sinha, and I'm an Indian classical dancer, art educator, and a choreographer by profession. I'm here today to talk about the role of performing arts in highlighting social justice issues. My forte is Odissi dance. Odissi is originated from in the Hindu temples of Orissa, an eastern coastal province of India. Though traditionally the dance form had its origin from a non-questioning and non-religious and ritualistic culture, the dance form itself has transformed over recent decades. Modern productions are based on a variety of themes and storylines, some of which are authored and choreographed by people like me. Now, how do I conceive a production? When I'm contemplating a new production, of course, I need something to be a stimulus for my creative thinking stream. An event, an incident, or a story that I experienced in the past or even recently. Something that caused some kind of emotion in me. That something is what usually becomes the stimulus for conceiving a production. That stimulus is the embryo or the seed of my production. I do not normally select the stimulus with an intention, but it comes somewhere. It just cropped up in my mind. Like today, when I was listening to all of your stories and experiences, the ideas were started crawling on my head, and I immediately thought of, okay, I need to do something with this topic. So I started jotting down, and I know what I'm going to do next. So it just comes like that with me. Interestingly, as I said, like, and I heard the stories and experiences this morning, things came up in my mind. And in many situations, it is a social justice issue that takes life in my thoughts as embryo, the stimulus of my production. It is some kind of social injustice or deprivation of rights or suppression of freedom that pains me, that causes an emotion in me, and it lies dormant, sleeping somewhere in my mind. It occasionally wakes up and reminds me of that emotion. And finally, when I'm contemplating a production, it wakes up and inspires me to conceive the production. It becomes my production. Now, can I assume most of us here gathered are those who are advocates of social justice? Are we here? You can say no, that's fine. All right, great. And we believe in social justice. As individuals, we might have different views on how social justice might be achieved. That is, the methods of implementing social justice. And I'm sure we all believe in equality, equal opportunity, fairness in the distribution of the wealth, uplifting those who are disadvantaged, and et cetera, Yet, these are all common thoughts and that rise in us due to our sensitivity to the injustice in the society. So sensitivity is a key word here. When one is truly sensitive to the pains and difficulties of others, whether they're individuals or disadvantaged groups, that sensitivity is an essential and basic quality in developing a socially just society. Why do I say this? Because it is the same sensitivity that is an essential quality in creative performing arts, or the author of performing art productions. It is difficult for me to imagine how anybody who is insensitive can be creative in the performing arts. Again, it is my opinion and my suggestions. I can be wrong. Sensitivity to social issues is an essential part in making of a creative artist. It is that sensitivity that brings out in us the stimulus for the creative process. Now, how do I use the elements of dance to communicate these issues? We seek equality without regard for gender, race, age, sexual preference, religion, nationality, or even education and mental or physical abilities. We seek freedom in opportunity, personal activity, thoughts and speech, and pursue goals. We want to be treated with dignity and respect, free from oppression. We want to live in a fair and just society. We seek equality, freedom, dignity, and respect. We artists have the opportunity and also to some extent the obligation be that catalyst to bring change in the society. Through our art, artists have the power to inspire change. If I ask myself, how do we artists do that? It is simply by using our abilities. Firstly, by the artist's ability to communicate a social issue, applying the art as a medium of communication. Secondly, by leaving objective imagery in the audience. And what do you mean by objective imagery? When I speak here today, there are around 40 or more or less people in this audience. Most of the words you're hearing me, you will forget after some time once we exit the hall. Some might remember some words, unless we will go back to the recording that we are having and see the video. However, when I perform on stage, a theme dance, for instance, the image that I'm leaving on your mind is almost the same in all of you in the audience. The image of my performance is not subjective, it is objective. It is objective because all of you are going to remember the performance as objective images and sounds that you experienced. Is that the power of performing art? Partly, yes. It is actually the power of your perception, using two of your most powerful senses, the sense of vision and the sense of hearing. In this context, I'd like to share an experience which I had when doing a project with around 20 senior citizens in Windsor County, Essex, last year. It just happened that it was a 5-day project to do dance with them. So I said, okay, I will do dance with them, but before that, let's hear each other's stories. So we kind of sat in a round, formation, and I told them, can you please share your stories regarding nature or anything you've experienced with nature or how beautiful the seasons are, whatever. So they all shared their own stories, and I said, lovely to hear all of them. So after a day, I asked them to share, each other's stories. They were sharing it, but in bits and pieces and not fully recalled. So what I did with that, while they were sharing their stories, I noted down their stories, and I incorporated my mudras and facial expression on those stories. And now what is mudras? Mudras are the hand gestures that we use in our dance. If I have to show a tree, if I have to show a deer, if I have to show a flower with the bees, the breeze. Oh my God, did you say that? Come, please. So these are the words I'm using, but while I'm dancing, I'm not going to use that. These are the words that we use when I'm dancing, especially in Indian classical dance form. So I incorporated those in few of their stories and with some movements and formed it like a very minimum physical movements dance. And I told them next day to come up and share again each other's stories, and they were happily doing it to the T. It was just that they remember, okay, I have to show tree here, so my tree comes like that. I have to show the breeze here, or I have to tell her, please come. So these are the things that, as a performing artist, I believe, when we're on stage, we kind of leave an impact on the audience. Sometimes they don't understand what we are saying. Of course, there are nowadays narrations available, and there are narrations behind, but this you connect and also connect with the emotions that we speak with. Because of this, the power of creating objective reality, performing arts like dance, music, drama, puppetry, etc., has been an integral part of our socio-cultural fabric and heritage. It has been used to convey stories and cultural values to the audience. Although our social values, what we consider as justice or injustice, good or bad, norm or abnormal, keep changing with human progress, the same art forms from the past can be applied to convey the social issues of the content times. Our contemporary social issues need to be highlighted, and performing art is one of the most powerful media available to us today. As an artist, I believe I have the obligation to create such works that leave a lasting impact on the audience, for them to think or rethink about the social issues that different individuals and social groups are facing. Performing arts also act as a cross-cultural integrator. Art is communication. Usually we see art as a media of communication between the artist or the performer and an audience. Art also allows people from different cultural backgrounds to communicate with each other via images, sound, stories conveyed. Here I'd like to share another experience of mine, which I had with the Indigenous artist. This was back in Indigenous Artists of Canada. This was back in the year 2017 when I went to a place called Baker Lake in Nunavut to do a project with them. It was unknown land to me with around minus 55 to minus 75 Celsius cold, to an unknown culture and background. I went with the hope of creating some collaborative work with them and learn each other's cultures through art. So how did I communicate without me knowing their language or they knowing any of the languages that I could speak? How did I make friends? How did we understand each other? Looking back, it surprises me today to think that it was only through my dance and their art forms that we truly communicated, met friends, and understood each other's sentiments. When we started to demonstrate and exchange our art forms, we bonded instantly by sharing our creative ideas and opening up the intricacies of performing art forms. They demonstrated to me Inuit throat singing. Inuit throat singing is a form of a musical performance uniquely found among the Inuits. The traditional form consists of two women who sing duets in close face-to-face formation with no instrumental accompaniment. This was very interesting to me, and I started exploring this art form with them. The end result of my experiences was a creation of a beautiful collaborative work with my dance and a throat singer. And for the very first time in Nunavut, the audience out there experienced the Indian classical dance. It was an experience to be cherished for life. And again, this was only possible because of my art that I believe in. Art can raise awareness through presentation of historical recordings, systematic patterns, oppressive forces and norms, individual behavioral patterns, and shine light on our blind spots and deep-seated notions. Mostly because I live in Canada and my art form originated from India, I aim to have productions, their commentaries, and my performance to transcend cultural boundaries. The classical dance forms from India, like any other ancient culture, hold a vast amount of history and diversity of cultural practices, anecdotes, and virtuous symbolisms. They're ancient, and yet they're forever contemporary, forever alive in their movements and expressions, forever open to being shaped anew by an artist's creativity as she walks in new context. As an artist, I try to convey this timelessness of my dance forms, make my dance understood by all, enjoyed by all. My hope always is that when the curtain falls, the artist and the audience will feel a shared sense of community irrespective of the differences in language, ethnicity, religion, or nationality. Now I'd like to share my other anecdotes from my work. The production I'm going to talk about now is highlighted the issue of gender equality and hypocritical social practices that needed to be highlighted. In one of my productions called Woman a Search, I featured two distinct but thematically connected stories, each featuring a woman who is subject to discrimination. This production was presented as an official event for the campaign Empowering Women, Empowering Humanity, led by UN Women to mark the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration, a landmark event for the advancement of women's rights. Woman a Search, this production is inspired by every woman who is fighting for her rights and identity. It is a general belief that Indian women are predominantly victims of social injustice. While some of it's true as in any society, the fact is that women in India have never accepted their situation passively. They have fought back with resilience, and many of the famous authors like poets from history have picked up such stories to inspire social change. After I staged this production, it influenced the hearts and minds of the people when they came up with different questions, suggestions, opinions after the show. I witnessed the anger, tension, compassion among the audience after the performance. They were moved and they had been impacted and intrigued, prompting them to think deeply about the social justice issues. And this issue also came up in Toronto Star, which was covered by Michael Karp. Among the two stories, the first story was highlighting the issue of oppression, human dignity, and respect. This production was called Chandalika, the Untouchable One. The production explored the deplorable caste system that has existed in the Indian subcontinent for centuries. The story Chandalika, the Untouchable One, goes like this. Many centuries ago, in the historical Indian city of Sravasti, there lived a young girl named Prakriti. Prakriti, being from the so-called untouchable caste, she finds herself in the margins of the society, shunned and ostracized by all. Here I'm going to quote the rest of the story from a narration by Siddhartha Sapan Roy. She, Prakriti, the untouchable, refused to accept a religion or a society that denied her very human identity. But then again, what could a young girl do but to resign to her fate and the unquestionable power equations that far predated her small life? It was one hot summer afternoon when she was near their local water spout, drawing water from the village well and filling her vessels, when a young man, parched by thirst, he stopped by to ask her for some water to drink. Surprised at first, she realized he must not be from here around, and politely informed him that she was an untouchable, so he was asking for water from the wrong person. The young man, a Buddhist monk, showed little reaction to her logic and said he hardly cared what caste she was. All he cared for was some water. Since he was thirsty, and as long as she was a human like himself, she could very well help him quench his thirst. The man drank from her vessel, and she found out he was an activist who spoke for social justice and equality. He had shunned the hegemonic religious and social order he was born into and had taken to a philosophy of life that spoke of inclusiveness and emancipation of the underclass. He spoke with ease with her and then moved on to where he was headed. This unbridled sense of equality pushed the girl into an entirely new, yet strangely familiar territory. She found the resonance of everything she had felt all her life in what the young man had told her. She found a voice to her suppressed rebellion in his politics. Now, coming back to my production, it portrays a dialogue between Prakriti and the society. She embarks on a dialogue with the society that rejected her. What unfolds is a tense journey of rebellion and pain, of desire and empowerment, through which she arrives at new understandings of herself and society, finally victorious and triumphant. In the original story, which is written by a Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore, the untouchable woman is urged to recognize her self-worth by a Buddhist monk. I gave a fresh twist to the story, portraying it as an encounter of a woman and a man of an equivalent quality of intelligence. I portrayed the man acting as catalyst in the woman's discovery of a true identity. Another story from this production is called Janma, the Birth. It depicts a story of a birth of a child in a patriarchal family, where everyone in the family is praying to Devi Durga, Mother Goddess, for a son. The narrative commences with a hymn in praise of Mother Goddess, who is depicted on stage. The goddess who is powerful, the one who eradicates all negative forces, who is full of compassion and wisdom, and who governs the universe. Remember, they are praying to a mother goddess, a female goddess, a woman. The whole scene is reverberating with the sound of a conch shell and ululation of the prayer for the birth of a son. But all the cacophony stops as soon as the child is born, when they see that instead of a son, it's a girl that is born. It's a contradictory outcome, right? And what usually happens when a girl is born in those kind of prejudice-filled families instead of the imaginary son that they prayed for? That's a society that does not allow any celebration on the birth of a girl child, the unwelcome and almost untouchable of creatures. The agony of the child is only beginning. How she is treated for the rest of her childhood, how all her dreams are shattered and so on. No one is bothered or cared about her. She didn't care either. She grew by herself like a tree grows in the wilderness. She spent her time playing outside with her friends, but this freedom stays with her for some time, as she found pleasure in blossoming from a girl to a womanhood. Again, that too was transient as she desperately searched for her own identity. Then she met a dance guru and saw his disciples practicing dance. And finally, she sought sanctuary through dance, her only vehicle and her nirvana, or eternal bliss. She goes on to excel in her profession as a performing artist and wants to take her dance worldwide. But what happens to her is that when she wants to dance, society frowns upon her again and again. In a society that holds biases, dance is considered the performance of a courtesan and a woman of low virtue. The family patriarch turns furious and she's barred from pursuing her dream. Well, this is not the climax, my friends, of this story. There is still another part that remains to be revealed on what happens in the life of the protagonist, the girl who is now a dancer and barred from pursuing her dream. I will perform this part as a dance recital at the end of the seminar. I will present this production, Janma, in a concise form, in the 10 to 15 minutes, is actually a 40 minutes length, and reveal the climax of this story on stage. So thank you once more, the organizers, to help me to do that, to really show the power of performing arts and how it could impact the audience, and hope it will impact you in some way when I perform. So I'd like to summarize today by saying that let us change and let us move forward. I, through my art and performances, will continue to build communities, raise awareness, and shine light on the injustices. Let us join hands, you and me. Let us join hands and create a path forward. Let us change, and let us apply art for change. Thank you so very much.